welcome to our show here, everybody. I know maybe you've seen the last one. I don't know if, Cody, you were able to watch the last one we did with Justin Reed Smith.
I didn't. I need to catch that, though.
Yeah, so today I'll let you introduce yourself in just a moment, but just a reminder, the reason why I'm doing some of these things is really just threefold. One, we want to give people just an understanding of who the church planters are in our diocese. And I'm hoping it goes to multiple dioceses as well. So who they are, to give church planters hope, because church planting is a place that often is really hard and challenging, and then also to continue the DNA of church planting in our diocese. So today we have Cody Dotson. And so, Cody, can you give us just a little introduction before we jump into some of our questions?
Yeah, my name's Cody. I'm here in San Diego in the North Park neighborhood. I grew up, both my wife and I, in San Diego, but we've spent the time traveling the country. Basically, we did seminary in St. Louis at Covenant Theological Seminary. And then we've spent the last 2 years in Brooklyn, New York, working for a church planting network out there. We've been back in San Diego for a little over a year now, and are connected with Holy Spirit Anglican Church and looking to plant here in North Park.
Okay, great. Thank you for that little background. I didn't realize you went to Covenant. Wonderful. Okay, so we pre-planned some of our questions here, so we're going to jump right in. Cody, tell us a little bit about your process of moving into the ACNA or, into the ACNA.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a wandering process. The church planting network in Brooklyn we worked with was Evangelical Presbyterian, and Covenant is also a Presbyterian seminary. But before that, in junior high and high school, I was a part of the Calvary churches here in San Diego, which is non-denominational. And even before that, my mother raised me Catholic. So I've been all across the board. I think in hindsight, as I'm working backwards, my time in the Roman Catholic Church was very formative, even though I was young. I learned about the importance and role of the sacraments in my spiritual life, as well as encountered Jesus and the beauty of the liturgy. So becoming Protestant, as my dad became a Christian, it was kind of a journey. I'm thankful for the ways I encountered Jesus along the way, particularly learning more about having a personal relationship and fostering that in my spiritual life. So as I was going to, as I left the Calvary churches in college and started kind of trying to find my way back to something that made sense to me and was something I could connect with, I landed in the Presbyterian church. I was kind of an odd duck, really loving the sacraments and the liturgy, the historic liturgy. So I was able to connect with the church while in seminary that kind of looked like something I had recognized. And as I was talking with the pastor there, realizing a lot of his seminary interns were actually going into the ACNA. So I kind of put that in my back pocket and said, okay, maybe this is something I'll look into down the road. And as I got connected with the guys in Brooklyn, they were praying the daily office, using the Book of Common Prayer. And as I was talking with them, they actually were looking into going into the ACNA as well. So as my time in Brooklyn, my church planting residency finished up, I was like, maybe if we're moving back to San Diego, maybe this is something we look into. As I prayed and talked with my spiritual director and worshiped at Holy Spirit, my wife and I we realized that this was our home. We really felt at rest, and in terms of, a church that is sacramental, a church that values the historical liturgies, but more importantly, a church that has a global identity, a global Catholic identity, having a church background that spans from, Roman Catholic to Baptist. I met really wonderful and faithful believers, and people who were filled with the Spirit and ministered in my life. And I wanted a church that recognized that and recognized God's work in all these different traditions. I found room for that in the Anglican Church. So I think that for me was the most important thing.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that journey. I know Anglican way is not the best way or the only way, but it's a faithful expression of the church. So I'm certainly married to it as well. So okay, so why church planting? Why is church planting something that you want to be a part of, you and your family?
Yeah. I started sensing a call to the ministry in college. I had been serving as a youth minister. And I remember a conversation with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And we were just talking and talking about ministry and, our futures together. We kind of knew pretty early on that we wanted to marry each other. And I just felt, I wanted to see healthy churches in San Diego. And I wanted to see, a lot of them, and churches that reached out to the community, churches that embraced the fullness of the sacramental life, the fullness of our worship, the fullness of the gospel. And I wanted to see a lot of those churches and to see that church multiply. And, I got connected to a church planting network here in San Diego, and they kind of showed me how church planting can play a role in that. And it excited me. We love evangelism. We love outreach. Molly and I both connect really well with our non-Christian neighbors, and through our ministries have just had an open house, and that has led to people coming to the faith and being baptized. And, kind of reflecting and meditating on those gifts, it was like, oh, okay. If we're sowing these seeds of the gospel in our community, this is how you do church work, and church planting work. So seeing that, those our gifts and our personalities were in line with that mission and vocation. We continue to pursue that through seminary and also through our residency in Brooklyn. And we're very blessed and excited that we can do that in our home city.
Okay. That takes some courage to do this kind of work, and definitely, I think similar in my case, feeling that from an early on. I think there's a definite blessing to know that sooner. A lot of pastors go into church planting, or they kind of get burned out because it might not be a good fit. So it sounds like you guys have known for a while that it was a good fit for you guys.
Yeah, I can learn the hard way. It takes me a while to get a lesson. So I'm glad God brought me through this, because I was like, okay, even I could realize this is what God's calling us to.
Yes. And how does the fact, sort of the Catholicity of the faith, or your ecclesiology, and or the sacraments, how does that inform the way in which you orient yourself to church planting?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my identities to the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church.
Sure.
And that while I, again, am married and certainly love our tradition and think that we can, it embraces the fullness of it all, I still get to pray and work alongside my other brothers. So, I have two friends who are in different Presbyterian denominations down here in North Park that, I regularly meet with and pray with and hope to get our, churches together to do work in our city, to make an impact and to see it transformed. So that's certainly, the Catholicity aspect is huge. The second is just simply the sacramental life. I think that everything that my ministry and our church's ministry flows out of the Eucharistic celebration. It's there that we most uniquely encounter Jesus Christ, and the entire Christian life is modeled for us. He is broken and given to us, and we commune with him and learn what it means to be broken and given for the life of our communities. So that certainly is another model for our church. So I think those two big things, the Catholicity and the sacramental life, are big for our church.
That's so beautiful. I don't think you can say that enough when you're talking about the Christian life. And it's significant when you think about the Eucharist is something that, it's not a performance, right?
Yeah.
It's something that God gives us first and foremost. And so then church planting, you enter into God's work. It's not begun, continued, and, brought to fruition because of you. It's God's initiative there. And I just resonate so deeply with that. Of course, I'm Anglican priest too, but really grateful for that picture there. Okay. So talk about the process. How, I know you have a vision for your church plant, so maybe a quick bit of the vision for the church plant and how the process has gone so far.
Yes. So the church plant, it has been a very unique process. We moved back to San Diego in February of 2020.
Yes.
So we got to worship with Holy Spirit for about 3 weeks, and then everything shut down. I think what God did through that process was just slow us down. We had gone through a 2-year church planting residency and felt really just prepared and ready to jump in and to get to work. But I think what he wanted us to do was just to stop and to, first of all, foremost rest, but also to pray and to reflect on our time in Brooklyn and the things that we learned, the way that we were impacted, and to heal from, certain things as well. Sure. So, it was time just to rest and to do that. And then the second thing was, I felt like I was just ready to go. And God was saying, not only do you need to rest, but you need to pray and prepare for what this church is going to do in the ministry. And that process took some time as well. It was a lot of conversations and searching for where we were going to plant and where God was calling us was a process also. And we're glad that God called us to North Park. The second process has just been getting to know people in the church, having a small group. The way that we are going about this is that I am currently serving as the the family ministries coordinator at Holy Spirit to kind of help strengthen and serve that church, to minister to the families in our community and to see Holy Spirit grow, in order that when we plant, not only is that church healthy and strengthened by our presence there, we can then partner as we plant as well. So we are essentially partnering with families to plant this church in North Park who are going to Holy Spirit, who live in this area, so that they can worship and serve in their community. So that's part of the process also. And now that we're in North Park and things are opening up in San Diego, it's, doing that slow and thoughtful and prayer work here in our neighborhood, getting to know people, being a local presence, getting to know what is going on here right now, what's good work that we can partner with, where are the areas that the church needs to start something new in order that we can see God's kingdom continue to grow in our neighborhood. So it's kind of where we're at now. We're a small little group of 14 of us who meet every week to just pray and to, seek God's vision for our community.
Nice. That sounds great. I think we all didn't see the COVID stuff coming.
No.
Church planting and COVID definitely was a challenge. And I like the balance that you have to say that I have a vision for the church, but also I'm flexible enough to ask God how it's going to come to fruition. And so how do you tend to that balance as you're launching new stuff? You have some idea of where you're going, but also God has to provide the pieces. So how do you deal with some of that tension? And
yeah, I think, church planting in the middle of a pandemic, the first thing that you learn as church planters is that you are not in charge of what's going on. So even someone like myself was like, that is a very clear message. I get it, God. But, it is also appreciating, the process that I've been through these past couple of years of self-discovery. What are my gifts? What are my wife's gifts? What are our vision for our ministry? And we're recognizing that if God is calling us to plant a church in North Park, He'll have gifted us and prepared us for that throughout our experience so far. And that has certainly shaped our ministry, I think as we are doing that, it's kind of just replicating that process with the people God are bringing to our community in our small group, is to see what sort of gifts that they come, their talents, their personalities, and seeing how that shapes our community. Because I believe that if God will, God is building this church, and if He isn't, then my labor is in vain. So if I know that to be true, then it's like, okay, God, what sort of materials are you bringing? What sort of building is this going to look like? Of people, and we're kind of praying and discerning about that. We have had a lot of people who have experience and ministries in healing prayer, and I've seen that kind of beautifully tie. My work in Brooklyn involved a lot of homeless outreach and ministry out on the street. In Brooklyn, we had obviously a very high homeless population, and even if people weren't homeless, very low socioeconomic communities that we were serving. So I got to do that and got to pray for people and knew that was part of the vision. But I said, I don't know what that looks like for San Diego. And all of a sudden we have 3 or 4 people who are very involved in healing prayer, and I said, okay, this is what it looks like. Because a lot of people need healing spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally here in our community. So I'm excited to get to be that sort of healing presence in North Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. I think too I think that's part of your sacramental worldview and forms the way you church plan in that way, because God gives you like you said, materials and people, and then you have to look at it and go, okay, God's leading me through what He's giving me. How do I steward it? And I think that's helps not burn out, as well as honors the gifts in the church and helps people understand their giftings better and things like that. And I think it's a little bit challenging to the American, get it done fast right away. It's a slower, deeper rooted kind of incarnational approach. And that's, I think, one of the strengths of the sacramental church planting.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen models of people just kind of be able to, have $1 million budget, plant, here's our building, first Sunday kind of deal. But it always seems a bit artificial to me, and doesn't quite connect with the needs of the surrounding community. And our hope and our intention is to be that sort of incarnational ministry to our neighborhood, so that we can have those deep roots. And this community, I don't want it to be about a personality or, anything like that. I want it to be the church in North Park,
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. Now, okay, last question, and then I'll get to if you have any prayer requests for people who watch this video to keep you in prayer for. But what would you, to encourage people to stay the course in church planting or step out in faith and do this type of work, if they're thinking about it, what's your encouragement in this process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first off, I love church planting. We've been pursuing this call for, 12 years through seminary and through our residencies and internships. I believe that, what our communities need are new, healthy churches. And, even our existing churches need church planting, because I think that it strengthens the existing church as well. Mm-hmm. And, therefore, if we need church planters. And I would just encourage, if anyone's considering it, if it's, a seminary student or a lay person, it is a wonderful way to minister in God's church. It is, you have to be creative, and it requires certainly some risk, but, risk for the gospel is good. And, it is it's a way, again, you get to creatively live out your calling. It is, just, I'm thankful for it. I think to encourage any existing church planters, just like this is God's church. We're just, we're called to go out into the field and to do this work. And that might not look sometimes how you were planning. It certainly was not my plan to be stuck at home for 4 months. I was ready to go out and to have all of our doors open and have people in our house praying and eating and, dreaming about what this ministry looks like. But God is still present in that, and He's working, and He is, preparing you for your ministry, even if it seems totally what you did not plan. And He'll bless that efforts and that faithfulness as well. If you're open to that, God will meet you in this time of challenge. Second, your calling is more than just simply trying to plant a church. It is, Monday through Sunday work. It's being present in your community. It is, being incarnational. It's understanding your neighbors, their needs, their hopes, their brokenness, and being able to just be present in that because Jesus wants to be present in that. So if we pursue these things, we should, it's not by my own strength. And, we want to prevent burnt out. And the way we do that is just simply seeking after Jesus and encountering him in these spaces.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, I was trying to remember that each day when I'm praying the daily office is, I'm part of something bigger than that, So the church doesn't rise and fall on my effort. I think that's one of the main challenges too, though, from church planters or would-be church planters is the risk factor. But I don't, I've been reflecting on this a little bit. I think we think we're safer if we're doing like a normal 9-to-5 job, but that's actually, there's more security, or there's the same amount of security.
Yeah.
It just looks like there's the facade of security, but you can die laying in bed from something, heart attack, whatever, but security is only found in Jesus. So
exactly.
All right.
Amen to that, dude.
Yeah. How about some prayer requests for people who want to keep you in prayer, for family, or for just basic church planting stuff, just 1 to 3, or church prayer requests?
Yeah, I think first, my wife and I have our second son on the way. So just continue prayers for healthy pregnancy. We are so thankful. It's been our prayer to grow our family for a couple of years now. So we're really happy to have a baby boy due in October. I think prayers for our family settling in. We just moved to North Park about 2 weeks ago. So we're still, getting used to everything, and kind of getting our bearings. I think for our ministry, first and foremost, I think our desire is right now to have a fresh encounter and feeling of the Holy Spirit in our ministry. I believe God will really show us what kind of church we need to be and what kind of church he's building, and how we can partner in that. But we need to have very clear discernment and fire in our belly to make that work happen. We are continuing just to have conversations. So pray for good conversations as we're growing our launch team, and that people come and want to be a part of this work, but also that these conversations go well, and that we'd be discerning of the Spirit on how to make this church a reality. I think third, we are still young, but we're growing, which is exciting. So just pray for, our supporting churches and things like that we can have everything figured out as we are kind of ramping up for meetings, and there are, financial needs as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Cody. I appreciate you taking the time, and
thanks, Brother Chris.
Really
always fun talking church planting with you, man.
All right, let's do it. And if anybody else wants to get involved in this, you can feel free to shoot me an email or a text. And I really want this to just, at a minimum, just be an encouragement to church planters. That's really something that sparked in me, is having a rough week one week, and I just thought, well, people need encouragement in the work of church planting. So thanks, brother. Thank you so much, and God bless you and your family, and we hope to talk to you real soon.
All right. See you later, man.
Okay. Let me see.